Okay, so these pandas, everyone's talking about King Bao and Bao Li arriving in D.C. in style. I mean, FedEx Panda Express plane. Come on.
Definitely makes you think about the lengths they go to, right?
It does, but it's not just about the cute factor, is it? We've got this New York Times piece digging into China's panda-lending program, and let's just say...
It's not all black and white.
Exactly.
The Times really went deep on this, thousands of documents.
No kidding.
Yeah, really paints a complicated picture of this whole panda diplomacy thing.
It sounds so positive, though. Panda diplomacy, what's the problem?
Right. On the surface, it's all about goodwill, conservation, friendship between nations. China's been doing this since the 90s, sending pandas abroad.
Yeah.
But the Times' investigation, it kind of suggests there might be some other stuff going on behind the scenes.
Like what? Give me the juicy details.
Well, first off, there's the money aspect. Zoos rake it in when they have pandas.
Oh, yeah. Merch, ticket sales, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. Everyone wants a piece of that panda pie, and the investigation reveals that China knows this. There are agreements in place that funnel some of that profit back to China.
Seriously. So it's not just a gesture of goodwill. There's a financial incentive for China here, too.
Seems like it. And then there's the political side of things.
Right. The New York Times mentioned something about that, too.
It's fascinating, really. You've got a powerful country like China giving you these adorable, incredibly rare animals, generates positive press, strengthens diplomatic ties. It's a soft power move.
So basically, loaning out these pandas could be a way for China to boost its image globally.
It's a possibility, and the Times investigation even found examples where these panda loans happened around the same time as big political or economic agreements.
Wow, so these pandas are mixed up in international relations and economics. It's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is, and it gets even more complicated when you factor in the investigation's findings about panda breeding programs.
Okay, yeah, the article mentioned some pretty concerning stuff about those.
Right. So they found some questionable practices in these breeding centers, things that are raising some serious ethical red flags.
Like what?
For example, the Times found cases of pandas undergoing procedures like insemination while only partially conscious.
Wait, they were partially conscious. That's awful. Why would they do that?
It's definitely controversial. A lot of animal welfare experts are opposed to it. And while the report doesn't say exactly why it's done, it just doesn't sit right ethically, you know?
Yeah, it's tough because on one hand, pandas are endangered and we want to increase their numbers, but not if it means causing them pain and suffering. It makes you wonder what the real priority is here.
Exactly. And it becomes even more questionable when you consider what the Times found out. None of the cubs born through these programs have ever been released back into the wild.
So if they're not releasing these pandas back into the wild, what's the point of breeding them? It's not like zoos can just keep all of them forever, right?
That's the big question a lot of people are asking, especially conservationists. The whole idea behind these programs is to eventually release these animals back to their natural habitat. But with pandas, it's really tricky.
What's so tricky about it? Don't we have enough pandas, or is there something else?
It's a bunch of things, actually. First off, pandas are picky eaters.
Yeah, bamboo only, as far as I know.
Exactly, and unfortunately, those bamboo forests are disappearing because of deforestation and people building stuff.
Yeah.
So even if we had tons of pandas born in captivity, just releasing them without fixing the habitat problem wouldn't really work.
That makes sense. I guess it's like trying to fill up a bathtub with the drain open.
Yeah, perfect analogy. And then there's the fact that pandas are really bad at having babies, both in the wild and in captivity.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the females are only fertile for a really short time each year, and they usually only have 1 or 2 cubs. Plus, even if the cubs are born healthy, raising them in the wild is super hard.
So you've got all these challenges, and then you add in the whole political and economic side of things that the New York Times uncovered. It's kind of a mess.
It is a mess, and it makes you really question the motivations behind these panda loans. It's definitely more complicated than just sending pandas to zoos all over the globe and hoping for the best.
Speaking of zoos, what does the National Zoo say about all of this? I mean, the ones here in D.C. where King Bao and Bao Li just got to.
Good question. They're actually pretty defensive about it. They're arguing that these panda programs are important for the survival of the species, like an insurance policy.
An insurance policy? What do they mean by that?
Well, they're saying that by having pandas in zoos around the world, it's like a backup plan if something catastrophic happened to pandas in the wild, like a disease outbreak or something.
I guess it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying it's better to have them safe in zoos than risk them all disappearing.
Right. And to be fair, they do have a point. There have been cases where captive breeding saved a species from going extinct, like the California condor.
Oh, yeah. I remember hearing about that. They were down to almost nothing, and now there are hundreds of them.
See, so it can work. But the difference is with condors, the goal was always to release them back into the wild. With pandas, it seems less clear.
Yeah, the New York Times article made it seem like they're not really focused on reintroducing pandas into the wild.
That's the heart of the debate, right? Are we really trying to save pandas in the long term, or are we just keeping them in zoos for our own benefit?
Yeah, are we actually addressing the reasons why they're endangered in the first place? Or are we just putting a Band-Aid on the problem?
That's a really important question. And honestly, there are valid arguments on both sides. It's complicated.
So where do we go from here then? We've talked about pandas arriving in D.C., panda diplomacy, breeding programs, ethical concerns. It's a lot to process.
It really is.
It's kind of crazy. We started with those cute pandas arriving at the National Zoo and ended up talking about international politics and animal welfare.
Yeah, it just shows you how complicated conservation really is. There's always more to the story than meets the eye.
And it makes me think about those two pandas, King Bao and Bao Li. Are they symbols of conservation or are they caught in the middle of all this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's something to think about, for sure.
It makes you see those cute pandas in a whole new light.
It goes beyond just pandas, though.
What do you mean?
Well, pandas, they're what you call charismatic megafauna, like elephants,
Yeah.
tigers, those animals everyone loves.
Right?
Their stories often reflect bigger issues: habitat destruction, human-wildlife conflict, balancing conservation with money and politics. It's all connected.
So understanding the panda situation can give us insights into these broader issues affecting other endangered species too.
Exactly. It's not just about saving one species here and there. It's about looking at the whole picture: ecosystems, human behavior, global policies.
That's a lot to wrap your head around, but super important.
It is. And it starts with being aware, asking the tough questions, holding institutions accountable.
So what can we do as individuals?
Lots of things. Support organizations that are doing good work on the ground. Educate yourself about where your local zoo gets its animals. What practices are they supporting? Use your voice, make conscious choices, advocate for better, more ethical ways of doing conservation.
A call to action then.
It is. The future of pandas and so many other species depends on us being informed and engaged.
Well said.
Yeah.
You're definitely giving me a lot to think about. I'll never look at pandas the same way again.
Good. I'm glad. And on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on, too.
We have. This might be the end of our deep dive, but the conversation definitely doesn't end here. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep learning.